Hi, everyone. Taylor Bloom here, head of Sports Business Journal's sports technology business. I'm very excited to be joined by Jason Caliento, Chief Commercial Officer at Boldyn Networks. Jason, I was hoping you can give us just kind of a primer on Boldyn in general and lead into then what you exactly do in the sports industry.
Great. Well, first, Taylor, thanks for having us. This is multiple years for us working with SBJ, and so great to be here again. So for Boldyn, Boldyn designs, builds, and operates networks in a variety of complex environments. That includes sports and entertainment, obviously, but additionally, all kinds of other places where you'd expect that you'd have a big need for connectivity. So that includes here in New York, the subway system. So we're partnered up with the MTA. We've got networks across all 280 subway stations. We actually just started building out the tunnels. Additionally, in London, we're doing the same thing for Transport for London. And then importantly, we're doing that on all kinds of college campuses across the country. So we have networks on 350 college campuses. That includes everything from the dorms to the entire campus to the sports stadiums on campus. And that really gives us a lot of insights that we'll talk about later in terms of managing really complex uses and in complex environments.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely want to get into that. And then Boldyn as a whole, talk about some of your different ownership criteria and what you have as a strategy and a mission with your technologies, and then what you just said with the sports industry. Definitely want to go into in a bit more detail, but let's back up a second.
So think of us as what we think of ourselves as in that design, build, operate mode is really as a neutral host or open access provider. So what we do is we apply best in breed technology in a model that then allows, for example, the wireless carriers to leverage our technology, that allows for a layer of Wi-Fi, a layer of fiber usage. And so in that model, it's fairly capital intensive. So we're owned, for example, by the Canadian Public Pension. So CPP Investments owns about 90% of us. And that allows us to really focus on large scale, capital intensive type programs, such as the ones that I described, as well as in the sports and entertainment world. So our model is really to be able to provide a level of shared economics, because there's a lot of folks that need access to these networks that we're building. Think of it as the major wireless carriers, multiple fiber providers, the venue itself to be able to use those networks. So our model is to go build a converged network in these locations, and then be able to provide access to multiple different users.
Thanks for that background. That's helpful. Talk to me more about converged networks. I want to make sure everyone's understanding where that's at now, where you hope it will go.
Yeah, thanks for that. So really what we see as the converged network strategies around being able to have a level of 5G, Wi-Fi, and private networks, all basically serving different functions. Certainly, everybody's looking at be able to have basic connectivity for phone calls, texting, internet access, and they want that a couple of different ways. They want to be able to access that through their wireless provider. They also want to be able to access that often in a fan-facing environment in a sports entertainment context. They want to be able to access the app, for example, to be able to have everything from tickets to merchandise to sponsorship activations. So again, it's 5G, a layer of Wi-Fi, and then additionally private networks. We're making significant investments in private networks, and think of these as back-of-house type networks that support things like ticket scanning, but also point-of-sale devices, also security cameras, and a network that really facilitates how the venue wants to use its own assets for back of house, as well as for front of house things like sponsorship activations. So when we talk about converged networks, we talk about the combination of those three specifically, and then also a level of sensor networks so that we can look at things in a stadium like air quality, noise levels, are the air conditioners running when they shouldn't be? So really, when we think about that holistic package, that's what we mean by a converged network.
It's interesting. So obviously here at Tech Week, we have a lot of different venue operators, tech executives, strategy executives, et cetera. Are there any unique use cases of these private networks or that general converged environment you just talked about that you'd want to maybe highlight or call out?
Yeah, so here at Tech Week. Obviously we'll talk to lots of different folks. One of the things, one of the ways that we describe our tech stack is really as that foundational tech stack that facilitates everything from the app to those sensors that I was talking about to fan-facing Wi-Fi that can be used in a number of different ways. So at the end of the day, if you think about those technologies as foundational, really it's the purposes here are to have a great fan journey. So making sure that that fan experience is terrific. So we talk a lot with everybody that's got, for example, applications. We talk to the ticketing providers. We talk to obviously all the venues themselves and to the sports teams of how they want to make sure that we're supporting that fan journey. So there's that set of applications. And then additionally, there's the back of house things that I mentioned. But really importantly, there's one of the things that we'll be talking about here at Tech Week is about the level of analytics that you can do when you have your own Wi-Fi network and we have your own private network. The the drawback to 5G is that that's the wireless carrier's information and that's their customer. With Wi-Fi, though, specifically, teams can understand how are people moving through their stadium? How are people using their app? How are they activating different things like checkout, automated checkout, or touchless payment systems, and really have a much deeper level of understanding. So we've got an analytics package that we're developing with multiple different venues that then we can look at and go, great, here are the business insights that a team or a league can understand to really go, great, how do I leverage this information to go with create new offerings, improve my offerings, or really go look at new things that they can create that on that level of analytics.
To double click on that a bit, because that's very relevant for everyone in the audience at Tech Week here. What groups within those teams or leagues specifically, is this like a business intelligence new tool, like within that department at a team? Who are you guys directly interfacing with on the analytics level?
It's a great question. So lots of different teams do it differently. There's some terrific. One of the teams that we talk to a lot about this is St. Louis City Soccer Club, who actually has a chief experience officer, Matt Seebeck. Yep. It's a great example of just a singular focus on how do we leverage this data to do that. In other places, it's a CIO or a CTO that controls that. But at the end of the day, holistically, the team is looking for these insights to be able to bring to its business and its fan experience, and importantly, its back house as well.
And that's a level of insights from Wi-Fi, right, as well as their private network.
Right. I would say private networks, it's a little bit earlier stage in terms of what those, how those insights are created. But with Wi-Fi, it's a very mature technology. It continues to improve. There's more spectrum now available for Wi-Fi than there's ever been in history. And so we're really encouraging the use of Wi-Fi in addition to 5G and private networks to really garner those fan insights.
Yeah. I appreciate that overview. So that's helpful with the converged network environment you're operating in. SBJ reported in January, I believe, you guys raised like 1.2 billion in debt financing. Talk a bit about that. Why would you take on some debt like that? How does that interplay with your owner, who was a very stable owner in the pension plan there in Canada? Why did you need that debt? What are you doing with that? What are you looking to do?
Sure. So think of that as a vehicle to accelerate growth. So certainly we have some of the CPP Investments is about a $650 billion diversified global fund. So we didn't like need the cash, but the idea was, let's make sure that we've got the powder to go accelerate growth. Let's go make sure that we can go make investments, certainly in the sports and entertainment world, as well as in some of these other really large scale public-private partnerships that we go into, and really just accelerate our growth across the U.S.
And speaking of growth, at Tech Week here, you talked about a major new partnership that you guys have announced. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so we're really thrilled to announce our partnership with Major League Soccer. So we've really, to some extent, here it's their 30-year anniversary. We've grown up to some extent with Major League Soccer, so we're partnered with 10 teams and a growing number of teams today, where we've got networks in their facilities. And so the partnership was really about how do we take that tech stack and elevate it for all of the teams. You also have kind of disparity in when those venues were built, what the tech stack is. So we're really looking to help all of the teams, and specifically the league, really be able to go garner those insights, both commercially, fan experience, back of house, to be able to just bring that entire tech stack up for the entire league. So we're thrilled to announce that partnership. So Boldyn Network's an official partner of Major League Soccer. We're thrilled to continue the work that we're doing with our existing partners, and then we're really excited about being able to extend that to additional teams throughout the league.
Well, that's been a great kind of overview of kind of where Boldyn sits, where you're operating now in the sports industry and outside of it. In general, you talked about the 5G networks, Wi-Fi, private networks, that convergence of different data, different opportunities, different ownership of those data sources. To kind of close us out, Jason, give us a 3 to 5 year look at what sports industry should be aware of, and just in general, technology industry as a whole, as it pertains to next generations of Wi-Fi, next generations of mobile data, et cetera. How do you kind of view that in your role, and how do you try to prepare Boldyn and prepare the industry for that?
Yeah, so we are very focused on sometimes the least sexy things about all of that, which is infrastructure. And when you focus on infrastructure and make sure specifically in these complex venues that you get the infrastructure right, that really sets up the foundation then for the technology upgrades that are going to need to happen in the future. And then we feel really strongly about being the right size capital partner to be able to fund a lot of those, as well as being the right size company that matches up really well with individual teams and and leagues, where we're not the world's biggest, we're not obviously the smallest, but we think we're really in that sweet spot to be able to be a great partner long term. The futurist side of me would say, though, with what we're going to see specifically with AI over the next 10 years and how that's going to translate to mobile devices, how we're going to be using our devices, how we continue to grow data consumption in these venues, how we continue to have we were recently at a concert and watched everybody uploading Casey Musgraves to the cloud, and we were a little bit worried, but we had built that infrastructure so that it could support it all. That those use cases of AI, social media aren't going anywhere; they're going to continue. And so I think the data having that infrastructure and the right partner to have that data infrastructure in place for the long term is really what sports teams should be focused on.
Makes sense. Well, Jason, really appreciate you joining us here at Tech Week to enrich us and make us smarter than when we arrived, and a lot to be prepared for there. And thank you for joining us for this executive insight.
Always a pleasure to talk with you, Taylor. Thanks.